Okay, we're live.
Hello, everyone. I am Jasmine Salas, and I'm here with.
Jackson Isola.
So, today we're going to be talking about going to college and how to make friends. So, first, we're going to introduce ourselves. So, I am an alum from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I studied sociology and minored in anthropology and criminology.
And I also went to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, and I dual majored in English and psychology.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna get right to it. So first, we're gonna be talking about the first step. Like you're fresh to college. Well, what should I do now? So I highly recommend going to Quad Day. I think that's gonna be like one of the first activities that one has, especially when you're a freshman. So Quad Day, if you guys don't know, it's basically all of the clubs and organizations get together in the main quad, and they have it's kind of like a science fair, but big posters of their clubs and what it is and what it means and stuff like that. So I think this is such a great way to like get to walk around and like see what you're interested in and see if you want to join any of the clubs.
Yeah, and you can talk to people, representatives from each club, and get to know more about it, ask your questions. And usually they'll have an emailing list they can add you to so that maybe you're not sure, but you can get more information and think about it over the weeks to come. You can always come back to it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't have to be super dedicated to like going to like every club meeting. If you just want to test it out, go one time, and if you don't like it, it's totally fine. It's totally cool. Do you want to talk about like your experience like in clubs and stuff?
Yeah, it's really a great way to make friends, which is what this whole presentation is about. So in my experience, Quad Day is where I ended up making a ton of friends because I saw a table for this club called Active Minds. It's a mental health advocacy club. And I just started chatting with one of the guys there, and he was really cool. And so I went to a few meetings, then ultimately got really involved with the club, and then ended up on the exec board. And I have friends that I've made in that club that I'm still friends with now, from like a year, 2 years ago. So that's my experience.
Yeah, definitely. Same. I was in a club that focused on Latinx students and how to find resources out in campus. So it was such a great way to, I guess, connect to students that really relate to me. And I've made tons of friends out of those clubs. So I highly recommend going to Quad Day and check out what you like. And if you don't see a club that you're interested in, you could always create one.
Yeah.
I've done that. I know some of my friends have also done that. So, there's options.
Absolutely.
Yes. Should we move on to the second
Yeah.
point?
Yeah. So with extracurriculars, I know plenty of people who made friends, not just in clubs, but also in like work programs that they're in. So whether you're in a federal work study job, which if you want more information on that, you can always reach out to your ISAC rep. But if you're in any sort of part-time work or doing like a lab assistantship or something, then you're going to meet people there, and they're going to maybe have similar interests to you, and that's a great way to make friends as well. Another thing I recommend is going if you're into sports or activities. There's like tons of like clubs and organizations for that. Personally, like I'm in grad school right now, and on Sundays, me and my friend were just kicking around the soccer ball like last year at the university fields, and we met up with some guys there who are also grad students, and now we play every Sunday. So that's a great way to make friends too.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, so for me, one of the main things that I've joined is actually my honor society for my program, which it's not a club, but it is an activity. So I was also able to join that, which was amazing because I get to talk to a lot of people that we have the same interest in, and it was such a fun time. So I also recommend that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and volunteering also, same thing with work, you're going to meet people. So yeah, those are the main extracurricular ways you can meet people. But another great way to make friends also is through your classes. So as you're taking classes, it's going to be a little bit different from high school. You're going to be taking almost double the amount of classes because they're semester long typically instead of a year long. So that's a big difference. But you're also taking classes that are in a subject that you're interested in. You get to pick from a wider variety of classes, and you can if you're majoring in the subject that you're interested in, you're going to be meeting people in those major requirement classes that might have similar interests to you. So you might be seeing people in multiple classes, and so it might be a good idea to get to know them, just chat with them in class, after class. Another thing that I did occasionally was when there was an exam coming up, I would talk to some of my classmates, even if it's just the person sitting next to me, and say, hey, do you want to go to the library and study like the week before the test? And that's a great way to meet people as well, from my experience.
No, yeah. Likewise. So my major is not as big as like other majors, like business majors and stuff, especially at U of I. So I was very connected to my major and my classes, and I did have a lot of the same people in a lot of my classes. So it was very, I guess, easy to connect with them, especially because you guys are learning the same thing and you guys have similar interests, especially like in the class. So it was very easy to approach them and be like, hey, like I need help with this and I need help with that, and that's how you make friends. Like it doesn't mean that you don't have to continue talking to them and stuff like that, but it's just such a great way to, I guess, like get to know other people and use them as resources as well. So it's kind of like a win-win situation. So definitely recommend that too.
Yeah, and for all my introverts out there, I was also very introverted my first year of college, and a great way to meet people in class if you're not comfortable reaching out to strangers, because you're all looking forward and you have to kind of go out of your way to talk to people in your class sometimes. But a lot of times classes will have group projects where they assign you randomly with people in class. Sometimes you meet really cool people that way, and you can just try to stay connected with them, and maybe take other classes they're taking, or I don't know, just try to keep up.
Yeah, group projects, study sessions, any of that sort. It's such a great way to get to know people, especially if you guys are interested in the same thing. So it's easy to connect with them.
Yeah. So don't worry too much. It's easier than you think to make friends.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So the third point would be to attend events. I know as it might be a little frightening as a freshman, if there's like a picnic at the quad or something, it might be a little bit frightening to get out there. But, you have to keep your mind open and attend these events. Don't be scared. Everyone is literally on the same page.
Yeah.
And if you think you're the only one lost, you are not.
No,
you're definitely not. I know I dormed my freshman year in college, and luckily they had a lot of events, for the freshmen and for them to just get to know your neighbors, your roommate, if you don't know your roommate. And I would always hang out there, and it was just such a fun way to get to know my roomies too.
Absolutely. Yeah, residence halls and like your RA, which is a resident assistant. They're basically other students who are looking after other people in the dorm, if you're not familiar with that term. But they're always having events. I know my dorm, my freshman year, would have like a Halloween party, and they would have like occasional just get-togethers. A lot of the guys on my floor were really into playing Smash Bros, and so they would go to the lobby and set up their Nintendo on the TV and play that. So yeah, there's always things like that in your residence hall.
Yeah, one thing in my residence hall, they had like an exec board that organized events for the whole residence hall, and I was able to actually join the exec board just because I wanted to try something new. And we were able to, I guess, create events for Halloween and Christmas. So we did like pumpkin carving, ugly Christmas party. And that was such a great way to like not only get to know my exec board, but again, like the whole residence hall. And it was so much fun.
Yeah. And if you hear us talking about like executive boards, it sounds kind of intimidating a little bit, but it's really like, it's easier than you'd think to become super involved in a club. You just have to be consistent and try to be involved and put forth some effort. And then most clubs would be happy to have you take more of a leadership role, which is great for resume building. But I think the experience is fun and worth it, aside from just like how it looks on paper. But it does help. It doesn't hurt to have it on your resume.
Right, I agree.
But universities have tons of events. Big universities especially will have sporting events, but a lot of smaller schools too prioritize sports a lot. So yeah, go see a game, go be part of the crowd and show some school spirit. I don't know if that might not be your thing, but I don't know. I recommend just trying it once. You can always leave.
Yeah.
And usually students will get discounted tickets too.
Yeah, that is true.
Additionally, if you want to be more in touch with a certain culture, then there's usually cultural centers or culture houses on campus that you can go to. They'll host events all the time. I know the Japan House at U of I hosts Japanese tea ceremonies, which might not be the perfect way to make friends because you're supposed to be silent the whole time.
Oh.
But but you can still meet people, and it's fun.
Yeah, I went to La Casa, which is also a culture house for Latinx students. So if you need help with like your word letters or financial aid or your homework, or you don't know what classes to take next semester and stuff like that, you are always welcome there. And there's always students there, so you get to ask any of them, and it's also a fun way to interact with one another. And I know they also host like lunchtime, so they offer free lunch. They also have like little giveaways and events, so it's also such a fun way to like get out there and get to know people.
Yeah. And so long story short, there's a ton of different events offered through schools, no matter what size. And like we mentioned, if you want to start a club and host events yourself, you could totally do that. It might be a little work, bit of work getting it off the ground, but once you do, it can be really rewarding. But yeah, most schools have a student involvement newsletter where you can just sign up for and get news on events that are coming up. In addition to sign up for newsletters for individual clubs. But yeah, schools are usually pretty good at trying to make sure that students have things to do while they're there.
Yeah, I know U of I actually had like karaoke night or Jeopardy night. They also had like a comedian night and stuff like that. So it's always so fun to join them, even if you want to go alone and like see who you meet out there. It's really fun.
There's something for everyone.
Yeah, something for everyone for sure.
Okay. All right. So did you want to add anything else with the events or with extracurriculars before we move on?
I would say that actually when I was going to quad day, I really enjoyed every single club, and I did join. But when I came close to the end of my senior year, I was actually able to create my own club, which was the sociology club, because obviously social was my major and stuff like that. So that was such an amazing experience, and I had a lot of people come to my events. So again, please don't be afraid. I know that it could be a little bit frightening, especially if you want to create something. But please, it's not that difficult. You could do it.
And that reminds me, when you mentioned that like majors will sometimes have their own specific club. There's like creative writing club. There's all sorts of different clubs. But it made me think also, we haven't really talked about Greek life much. Not every school will have Greek life. Some of them do. It does get a little bit of a negative stigma, sometimes for good reason. But there are a lot of fraternities and sororities that are academic focused or volunteer focused. And that's a really great way to make a very tight-knit community of friends. So if you're interested in that, you could look into it. Schools